Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the November briefing with myself and James. We're going to take you through this morning for the next 10 minutes or so, an update on a number of topics. So again, thank you for the feedback we've been receiving. It's very interesting.
Good, yeah. People want more, so we're going to give to people more.
Yeah, and hopefully we keep increasing our viewership and hits. So getting straight into it again, hopefully at this stage everyone is familiar with who Symmetry Financial are, and we are based in Dunboyne, a team of 8 full-time with a pension consultant, and we have a nationwide reach, and we look after all elements of financial planning basically. So if you're new to this video or you haven't touched base with us in a while, we do look after all elements of finance. So what we're going to talk about today, again, we are getting more and more inquiries, aren't we, on the whole cryptocurrency
space? A lot
space.
more crypto, and it's definitely price leads bias. As the market cap goes up, as the price of these cryptos go up, more and more people want to get involved or want to put a little bit of their money in. So
understand it more.
Yeah.
How to go about it, and while we aren't the market experts, there's plenty of people on YouTube who profess to know quite more than us, but we do have an interest in it. We do follow it. We do read about it. So
trying our best to keep up, but it's just moving at such a rapid pace.
Yes, you're correct. Yeah, and we do have an interest. So I suppose if you are interested in having a point of contact based here in Ireland, obviously in this space, feel free to reach out to us. So we're going to focus on the main cryptocurrencies, though. We're not looking at the smaller cap coins, the altcoins as they're called. It's not really something that we want to be bringing to the audience because it is such a volatile and fast changing marketplace. So just a little bit about crypto, Web3, the equity markets in general, the impact of the inflation figures that came out of the US in the last few days, and then we'll talk very briefly about Solar 21, which is an investment opportunity. Okay, so first of all, in relation to Bitcoin, we're at all-time highs on the Bitcoin market price. So it actually broke through the $69,000 price and then quickly pulled back.
Bit of a liquidation event, which you do see a lot in the cryptocurrency markets. As there's a lot of leverage. In it, So especially as we move higher, a slide we'll move on to with the fear and greed index. It's definitely showing there's a lot of leverage in the market.
Yeah. So in terms of the market cap value of cryptocurrency in total, that means all of the coins combined in terms of valuation, it broke through the $3 trillion mark this week, which was the first time ever. Duly pulled back, as James said, on a pullback. It actually pulled back as low as just under $63,000 a coin, and that happened. For any of you that are interested in looking at this and understanding it a little bit more, it's hunting for those individuals that have leveraged positions. So where they're buying the currency or the asset class with the borrowings. And the exchanges are aware of this, obviously, because they provide the positions and they provide the leverage, and then they look to stop these investors out. And that also leads into then the fear and greed index, because obviously if there's a high level of greed, and this is just a sentiment analysis, so it's a tool that's readily available out there.
Yeah, so fear and greed is made up of about 5 different components. So with all different weightings, so they'll take sentiment on social media, for instance, they'll take momentum, they'll also look at price, different things like that, leverage, and kind of compile it into a score to kind of see where we're at.
New entrants into the marketplace, the amount of leverage on the exchanges. So there's a lot of things that go into the mix to identify the fear and greed. So again, it's not saying don't look at investing. If you follow our premise or our advice the whole way through, is the dollar cost average or euro cost average into anything you invest in, not just cryptocurrency. You're going to get the good and the bad over a period of time, but it's just more about being in the market as opposed to being in cash. But following this index or that sentiment, it might be, I wouldn't certainly be putting all my life savings in just with
scaling
scaling, correct, that's the term. And again, just to put it into context as an asset class, and we've also stretched out the screen there to include Ethereum there at number 15. It's putting the 2 top cryptocurrencies in comparison with all other assets, both public companies, metals, and ETFs. Bitcoin's coming in there at number 8, and Ethereum is coming in there at number 15. So what does that mean? It means Bitcoin if Bitcoin gets to a price of approximately I think it's about $74,000 a coin, it's going to surpass the price of silver. Okay, obviously it's advertised or promoted as gold 2.0.
Yes.
So the digital version of gold. I think that's really people are now talking about it as a store of value. You know, even though the value can fluctuate by 20% in a matter of minutes.
Yeah, or an inflation hedge.
Or a hedge against inflation, which we're going to touch on in a second. But it's in there above Tesla, Facebook. It's just below Amazon, and it's miles off gold. But I mean, the price point for Bitcoin to equal the gold price would have Bitcoin at about $840,000 a coin. Yeah, and there are people out there, people a lot smarter than James and I, who profess to the fact that Bitcoin will one day be valued greater than gold. So
far exceed it.
Yeah, it's not going to happen over time, but that would mean a Bitcoin price in the region of $840,000 based on today's prices. So again, just as an FYI, there's other people out there that would suggest that Ethereum is going to outperform Bitcoin, or at least match the Bitcoin market cap.
Yeah, could see it happening.
Could, I understand Ethereum, and it's
a lot more use cases.
User case, more than I do Bitcoin, but it doesn't mean that we're not saying it's going to happen. We're just bringing it to your attention. And then James, you want to talk a little bit about
cryptocurrencies is not just speculative assets in which you buy. There's lots of different technologies that are coming out. So DAOs is one. And then this is a big one at the minute, which is all to do with the metaverse. So there's various metaverses out there. There's Sandbox. This one in this case is called Decentraland. And the easiest way I could describe it is creating a digital version of yourself and maybe even uploading it to a digital place. So Decentraland is one of those places. I've shown on the screen that you can actually purchase digital land, and that particular plot is going for quite a lot of money.
That little red dot.
So
just to be clear here, that little red dot in this metaverse, in this Decentraland real estate.
Yeah, that's really what it is, and it's so I think it's nearly $500,000 for that actual particular plot. So 140,000 mana.
Yeah.
Mana is currently 2.5 euros for 1 mana, so do the math. But very early days, it's definitely a learning curve. You're trying to understand it more and more. But very interesting. So you might think it's really crazy talking about it, but it's not just me talking about it. So Facebook have actually changed their name to Meta regarding the metaverse. Also Nike are starting to sell virtual sneakers and clothes. Fashion houses in Paris are also selling jackets, which you can only wear in the digital universe, not in real life. So very interesting. I kind of see where Facebook's going with it. So they own Oculus Rift. They also have billions of users, and they're really trying to take the person from looking at on the screen to put on the goggles and do it digitally.
And it's not even going to be goggles, it's going to be sunglasses, and they're even tiny little pieces of technology.
You're 100% right, because do I see people walking around with these big goggles? No, I think definitely glasses, easier to use, and things like that. So
I'm
very interested.
I mean, it is above our level of understanding at the moment, but we're interested in it, and it's basically bringing Hollywood to real life in that. What are the movies called? Oblivion is the one that I was familiar with, which goes back.
Ready Player One. If you're trying to kind of get a little bit of an understanding of what I'm talking about, maybe go on YouTube, look up Ready Player One, and you can kind of see what we're talking about.
Crazy stuff. So that leads on then obviously to the equity markets.
Yes, so I mean they're just continuing to perform brilliantly. Like last year was 20-ish% of return, and this year, we're probably going to close out on a 30% plus year. So just doing fantastic. A lot of that has been led by interest rates have kind of stayed still. So that's brilliant, obviously, because the mega cap tech names, which are big components in both of these indexes, are able to kind of just march on higher. So definitely there's a seasonal aspect to it. and we're probably going to keep going higher into the end of the year. But definitely to be cognitive of the fact that tapering has begun. They've brought down purchases, balance sheet expansion from 120 billion a month to 105, and that's going to continue into 2022. So headwinds ahead in the medium term, but in the short term, I think stay long.
All guns blazing, yeah. So, and that leads us on then to obviously our friend Elon Musk,
yes,
and Tesla. So,
so as you can see here, this is kind of a craze that we did see over the lockdown. So Robinhood, zero commission trading, and retail getting involved in options. So you can see it's back on the rise. This stat here, they've shown it's a record, so $904 billion in a single day of single stock options that have been traded. This creates a gamma squeeze where the broker dealer needs to buy shares to hedge out their position, and that has caused a huge increase in certain prices in shares like Tesla that we'll move on to now. As you can see here, so back in August it was trading at say 650, and it's increased up at its high at 1200. So that was a $600 billion company in about a couple of months turned into a $1.2 trillion company. So these are just kind of not natural moves.
No.
But I suppose the real drama around this one was after this huge increase in price, Elon Musk came out on Saturday with a tweet proposing to sell 10% of his Tesla shares. And then obviously it's kind of had a bit of a, it's lost about 200 billion in market cap since that tweet.
Yeah.
Also, another bit of spice to it is his brother, Kimball, sold a lot of shares, about 120 million on Friday. Yeah. So a day before this tweet. So does the SEC come from? I think so.
Yeah, he isn't friends with the SEC,
no,
as we all know. And obviously it leads, again, feeds all into the inflation figures that came out on Wednesday, I think it was, or
correct,
Tuesday or Wednesday this week. Inflation figures at a 30-year high.
Yeah, 31, crazy.
31-year high, yeah. So again, do you want to just touch on that, James?
Yeah, definitely. So, what's really crazy about it is it's up at 6.2%. And really it's higher than that. So central banks always dampen inflation because it doesn't work with their mandate. Their mandate is balance sheet expansion, printing money, and creating inflation. So they want to kind of quell headline inflation and things like that. So quite scary, but also what we're seeing is from the past month. A lot of commodities have came back in prices, and supply chain bottlenecks have eased. So is this the height? I would personally think we're getting there in terms of inflation.
So again, it is something to be aware of, and it is really is a scary number.
It is very crazy.
But is it a once-off? Again,
I think one thing that we'd actually looked at is with one of the figures that your money is losing 1% every month.
Yeah, a dollar is losing 1% of its value every month at that level of inflation. And again, as James did reiterate there, it's the fact that is that the real cost or real price of inflation? Is that the real figure?
Yeah.
And most people would argue that it isn't. It isn't an accurate representative.
No, definitely not.
Of what the rate of inflation out there is. And why is that? Things like rent. And again, if you look at it in terms of Ireland alone, the price of rent continues to go up. Again, the recent DAFT report has come out. And then obviously the price of commodities, which has a big impact on the day-to-day expenditure. So heating your house, running your car. But when it comes to the just leading on to this interesting slide here, it's the cost of assets or products in terms of how inflation, the basket of goods in inverted commas, has changed over the past 20 years. So things like technologies.
Yes, just trended downwards.
Yeah, gigantically downwards. So I mean, the leading indicator there in the downward trend is TVs, obviously. But on the top end, what has become more expensive and has been has
gone up quite
had a huge impact or huge inflation re-impact on your take-home pay and your household expenditure. Hospital services, who's that going to impact? It's not going to impact you, not necessarily me, but it's going to impact the older community. College tuition and fees, who's that going to impact? It's going to impact the likes of you. It's not necessarily going to impact the likes of myself or the older generation. So inflation really is a figure that is specific to you. Okay, so there are the figures that are pumped out, and control try to be put on the inflation. But in reality is, if I have health insurance, is another figure that we always used to use, which falls under that top level there. Health insurance goes up every year based on healthcare inflation.
Exactly.
So who's seen their VHI price come down, or their Irish Life, or their layup price of health insurance coming down over the last 10 years? Nobody. Okay, so it's just bearing all of that in mind. And obviously, as we said, it will be specific to yourself.
Definitely.
Yeah. I don't think there's anything else to add there, is there?
No, I think we've kind of hit it all out there. Just certain stuff are getting more expensive, certain stuff are actually getting cheaper. Like exactly as Mark says, it's very specific to yourself.
Yeah. And then we just wrap it up on the Solar 21 project. So again, it's a really interesting project. We're putting money into it.
Really great track record with the guys. So they've moved on from their first one in Lancashire. Now they're on to this River Tees project. Again, we're even going to show on the next slide the demand for financing for these green products. We touched on in our last webinar, financing and capex and stuff like that for fossil fuels is just, it's non-existent, but the finance for this stuff is huge. The demand is huge. And just a really great product to get money in the door from these, waste trucks with rubbish. We all have this waste, we need to get rid of it. So they collect an income stream there.
It's mandated, and it's mandated in the UK. So it's not like in Ireland we have pickets and we have people, lobbying against having incinerators. Do you want one on your doorstep? Probably you don't. Speaking personally, but at the same time, I've been to visit them, and I can see the benefit that they bring, both in terms of getting rid of landfill demand, and also what they can bring to the local community. And I think there's a lot of positivity around the Indiver site up in Duleek. But needless to say, we're talking about the UK here, where the UK have dozens of these incinerators already in place. And these guys are building new technology. So they're bringing new incinerators to the marketplace. They have a plan. They're onto their second project, as James has just mentioned. So these are 120 to 150 million euro fundraisers. They're trying to do it with no leverage, so no borrowing from institutions. They're doing it purely through private investments.
Exactly. So again, if you're an investor with cash, you're doing something good for the environment. It's a net positive, but great return, 8% a year. 8%. It's a private market, so you don't have to worry about volatility. Like me and Mark talking about volatility in crypto, volatility in shares. Don't have this here. It's off the public markets.
Yeah, an interesting project. So if you want to reach out to myself or James, please do so. Drop us an email or phone the office. And we'd be happy to talk you through any of the topics we've touched on there. Hopefully, again, as per last week or last month, hopefully you all found it interesting. And with that, we will call it a day and talk to you all next month.
Thanks, guys.
Bye now.